Good evening and welcome to Project Clearwater. We're about to have a debate about the Aldermanic candidates in the 2nd District. So Project Clearwater, we've been in operation for almost 2 years now, and it all started with an article in the Waterbury Observer by Ken Harge up here. This whole thing is his idea about bringing accountability and responsibility into the inner city. And so we launched Project Clearwater, and we've had 5 forums so far. We've had cleanups, and tonight we're going to have a debate about alderman by district. So welcome, and we're going to begin. Good evening.
Good evening.
So the first question is for Greg Hadley. And we're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then rotate around as we've already agreed upon. So here's question number 1. Many residents in Waterbury are unclear about the power and responsibility of an alderman. It's the mayor who sets the agenda in the city, and it's the Board of Aldermen that supports or opposes the mayor's initiatives. With the implementation of aldermen by district, the hope was that aldermen would vote on citywide issues and champion district issues at the board. If you're an incumbent, can you cite a specific issue from your district that you have championed? And if you're a challenger, can you cite the #1 district issue that you plan to present to the board?
The first part of your question, I would say that I am a champion of blight. And the mayor and I, prior to getting elected back in 2012, the mayor and I had a discussion on the seriousness of blight or the neglect of blight in the district. We both agreed that we hit the ground running dealing with blight, and we have done that. We've done that through demolishing over 57 blighted buildings in the city, in the district, in the district. We've helped to organize a blight task force, which has been in our neighborhood, in the districts, in a overall more than once. As far as disagreements, we have had disagreements. We discuss those disagreements in caucus, and then we move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Same question to Vernon Matthews. Do you want me to read the end of it? Oh, you're all set.
I'm all set.
Okay.
I would try to increase the police presence in the north end, especially the 800, 900 block of North Main Street. And by doing that is either having the mobile unit kind of be out there, also to bring in more officers, which we were able to increase the number that we're supposed to have to 300 by 2020. But also would like to give them some type of incentive for them to stay in the city once they're hired, instead of running out to Wilkett, Watertown, whatever. Just want to keep them on the tax roll, but also to show that we do still believe in having community officers that live in the neighborhood. So if someone sees something, they can go to that officer, let them know what's going on, and build a rapport with them so that we can turn the north end around from having such a pretty much higher rate of crime than the rest of the city.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vernon. And now Erica Cooper.
Repeat the question.
Basically, if you're an incumbent, can you cite a specific issue from your district that you have championed? And if you're a challenger, which you are, can you cite the #1 district issue that you plan to present to the board? Like, what's the most important thing to you?
For me, in the second district, one of the most important things is the youth and the elderly that are in the second district. We find a lot that, mainly with the minority youth, that there aren't enough programs, that there aren't enough things that's going on. And for me, I believe that when they say that we don't have enough funding or that the city is short on funds when it comes to programs that have to do with either the youth or the elderly, I feel like I've already stepped in and took on that challenge, and I've made it happen as far as with youth programs, the Youth Social Change Program, the Project Keep Our Elderly Warm program. When these type of things happen, I truly believe that it takes a community, and we've lost that. So I would bring back the community by definitely finding out what they need and putting that in, and I've already done that as far as the programs that are in place right now.
Good, thank you. Francis?
Thank you. The main thing that I voted on that I think has improved the second district the most is the Davis Gardens. And we can see that this has just been completed. And this affects the district on multiple levels. It helps with blight, it helps with housing, and it also helps with building a community that people want to live in and that it helps strengthen the community. It builds a housing stock that is improved from what it was. It makes a community where children can be raised in, that they have a feeling for. They know the community, they can play in the community, they don't have to worry about dangers or crimes or anything like that. We have to look at, in the district as well as the city as a whole, in other projects we can do that are similar to this. I think that blight is a big issue in our district. It might not be a whole community neighborhood that has to be fixed, but individual housing that needs to be fixed. And what has been done has been decent, but we can continue to improve what has been done. With the housing, we have to look at what we're going to do after we demolish the buildings. I really think that there's multiple options we can do with these buildings and what we can do to help the community. We can either utilize that to make a community garden, put another house there, maybe implement it into neighboring housing to help with the either parking or different aspects like that that community needs. We have to look at each individual blighted area and see how we can use that to fix the community. And we really need to reach out to the community to see what that community needs. We don't want to just dictate to people what we think has to be done, but see what the individuals in the community want to be done.
Thank you very much. For question 2, we'll be starting with Vernon and then going right down through Francis and finishing with Greg Hadley. What role can an alderman have in making the city safer? It's easy to say you're for a safer city, but exactly how would you do that? And do you have a plan?
Well, one would be maintaining relationships with the community clubs and getting out to the local churches to have firsthand knowledge of what's really the issues that are at hand when these people are wanting the safe part of their city or the safe part of their neighborhood. Have a website that they can go to that if they need any information to share with us, or we need to share information with them if they can't make it to an Aldermanic meeting, so we will know what's going on in our ward, and also to just be more transparent in what's the needs for safety in the city or district.
Thank you. Ms. Cooper?
We have to first figure out why these crimes are taking place in the district. We can go around and say, you know, we're going to put these things together in order to stop the crimes, but the bulk of the problem is, why are these crimes happening? And when we look back, or when I talk to different people, the main issue is that a lot of them are out there, you know, what they say about idle time. A lot of these people don't have jobs, so they go and resort to other things. And when this happens, this is why the crime rates in the districts are so high. So we have to put in place, or I would try to put in place, programs for people that have been in trouble before and are looking to change their life. So they're not standing on the street corners, or they're not standing out there committing crimes. Our crimes come from a lot from boredom. And we have to figure out that first. We can't fix the problem about the high crime rates until we find out why and we deal with the people.
Thank you very much. Mr. Guerrera.
Thank you. We have to look at this in two ways. One, we have to see what types of crimes are happening, and then with that, we can see how we can tackle the situation. If it's just individuals idling around, it might be possibly being drunk in public, loitering, could be even worse than that, drug use in public, selling drugs, even domestic disputes. We have to look at where these are occurring and what's occurring. One thing I think we should really look at is the community relations police. The city, I think, really isn't doing that good of a job currently. We only have 3 community officers right now. They shifted around where the officers are. I think if we improved and updated how many, or increased how many community officers we have, we can help the community officers be out in the different districts and the different neighborhoods, so we have a presence of police in the neighborhoods. A lot of times when I was going door to door, people would say, when I was out in the peripheries, the dead-end streets, they would say, the police don't come around that much. Individuals come here, they know it's a dead-end street, not many people come around, and transactions happen. I think if the police just go around, or there's a presence there, if we increase the community relations and where they go, just seeing a police officer might stop crimes like that. Other crimes, we would have to look at what we can do to help those situations. But I think for crimes like that, like loitering or selling drugs and things like that, I think that would be a way to help tackle the situation and correct that problem if possible.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, hopefully by 2018, our police positions will be up to 300. With that being said, I would advocate for beat cops, second shift beat cops. And they would walk around the neighborhoods to keep our cities safe. The other is, I do want to talk about the community police relations division. They are short. I would advocate for additional community police relation officers. Also, if we do beat cops, our response times to various crimes would decrease. Right now, it's too long. In addition, I am the director of a WOW Center, where I have a youth council, and we are under a program called Urban Youth Violence Prevention. That is the area where youth can come in and be safe.
Thank you very much.
So this question is for Erica. All the candidates have been knocking on doors and campaigning in the districts in hopes of being elected. But how will you continue to stay in touch with the concerns in your district after the election? Do you support district meetings? If so, how would you do it?
I believe that being an alderman, alderwoman, that you should be visible to your community, to that district. I believe that I would put in place to have meetings every other month with the district of your where you're at, and to sit down and listen to what the community is saying, because as we say, community means a group. It's a group of people. Nothing can. I wouldn't feel comfortable sitting at an alderman meeting knowing that I had not touched bases with my community and not really knowing what they want. So I would put in place to have alderman meetings with the community every other month, so that I can hear their voice and that they can see that I'm there, and I'm trying to do the best I can to be an alderwoman and to put in place the things that they feel would make them safer and would make the community a better place.
Good, thank you. Francis?
I think we have to look at this in two ways. One, we have to get out into the community and be able to let the community come to see us. So we should pick an area in the district where we can go once a month, meet with the community, but have a dialogue, not just as the alderman meetings are, where public speaking occurs and the individuals speak to us, and then we just go to our agenda. There has to be a forum where someone can ask a question, the alderman in the district can answer that, address it, or possibly even admit, that's a good question, I don't have the answer right now, and I'll get back to you, and either possibly calling them later or maybe at the next meeting getting back to the subject. Also, I think an interesting thing to do is to have on the radio on WATR a different segment for each district. I don't know what the time frame might be, either every month for the districts or so on and so forth. But I think we have to do two different ways because everyone in the communities don't necessarily have the same abilities to get out to different meetings, or they don't have the time to listen on the radio. So we have to have possibly two different ways, maybe even three ways, where there's a way for everyone to hear the alderman to speak to the community to speak back. I think dialogue is the most important aspect we need, and not just a one-way street where someone speaks to us or we speak to them.
Good. Greg, same question.
Fortunately, I work in my district, so I am accessible and available on a daily basis. I get about 3 or 4 constituents coming in looking for assistance. And I do my best. It's not easy. We have a lot of needy people out there. So with that, the WOW NRZ has a monthly meeting that I discuss government issues and whatnot. People have to be at the table if they want to be heard. I walk to work. I'm visible in the community. So if people want to be heard, you have a vehicle or a site where you can come and discuss various issues. But you have to do it together. We all have to be at the table.
Good, thank you.
I believe that we should have some type of office hours that people can come and see us during the day. That if there's issues that are going on, like everyone else has said, some people can make it to an Aldermanic meeting, some can listen on the radio, but I believe we should have some type of area where you can come collectively, sit down, talk, discuss what's going on, make yourself readily available to your constituents that are in your district. Phone call, answer it back. Email, answer it back. If you're in the grocery store, stop and talk to them, find out what's going on. If you're at the gym, ask them what's going on, what issues they have that are going on in the city or what's going on in their district, what would they like to see happen. Then invite them down to the Board of Aldermen to hear what's going on so they can say it in a body to let people, the other aldermen know what's going on. If there's problems with the park, go to a Parks Commission meeting. If it's something with the police department, go to the police commission's meeting and voice your opinion so that the issue is there at hand.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cooper, the city has established a 311 number for residents to call and report blight, potholes, and quality of life issues. Would you support the idea of giving every alderman a weekly report from their district so they can follow up on constituent concerns? And if so, what would you do with that report?
I would support it. I believe that with that report, we could sit down and figure out those issues, because already I'm not even an alderwoman, and I have the community coming up to me asking, saying, Erica, there's trash that's been here for weeks. Can you get it moved? And I call 311, or I call one of our community officers, and it's removed. So when we get those reports, we need to sit down, figure out what is the problem, and maybe even have a meeting with the community to figure out what it is that we can do to put in place that would help to alleviate that problem. We have to always, and I'm going to stick to that, we have to keep the community involved. And that if that means us going to knock on doors after this election and seeing what the problems are, then that's what we have to do. But I would look at that report, and then I would call back the community in to see how we as a whole could fix it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Guerrera.
I'm in favor of getting a report back from the 311 calls. And this is because a lot of individuals, they call 311 or they make the report with the app, and then it seems like nothing happens. So I think it's important with that report that we'll be able to see that someone made the call in, and then we can look at the situation ourselves and see if anything was done about it. Because I think just because you reported it and then nothing gets done is a big problem. So we'll be able to check with the city workers and the administration itself to see if the app and the 311 is actually working properly and everything is going according to plan. Also, I think it's important that we can see that report, see what individuals are reaching out to us. It helps us get a dialogue, like I said before. And also, then we have a responsibility with that information to make sure something gets done and to see what areas of our district in our communities seem to be reporting more, having more issues, and which ones aren't reporting more, and seeing if something is happening that's fixing those issues, or if there's some reason that people aren't reporting those issues. So I think with that report, we can do a lot to help our district.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, I would welcome those reports. I am getting those reports. I am dealing with those reports. As I said earlier, I get constituents coming in to the WOW Center on a daily basis, and I sit down with them, we discuss it. I do referrals, follow up, and 9 times out of 10, the problem is solved.
Mr. Matthews.
Yes, I am too for the 311 report, but also to hold the blight officials at hand to make sure that they are coming out to do what is supposed to be done. And then once they say, yes, this is done, for me to either walk, run, or get in my car and drive through to see that the issue has been taken care of. Once I see the issue is taken care of, if we have the information of the person that reported it, I would try to reach out to that person, let them know that it was done, and thank you very much for allowing us to know what's going on in the district so that the issue at hand is cleaned up. And also to let them know that, you know, we're always there for them to make a difference as far as the blight or whatever issue that's at hand.
Thank you very much.
So this is for Francis. Francis, if a project is good for the city and bad for your district, where would your loyalty be, and how would you make a decision about that?
I think I would have to look at what you necessarily mean by bad for the district. If it's going to completely destroy the district, either get force people out of their homes, destroy the roads, maybe make it unsafe for the individuals to live in, I think that would necessarily be something that you would side with the district over the city about. But I have to say it's a complicated issue because you have to look at what the issue is and not just a general blanket statement of it's either good for the city and bad for the district. So I think you have to look at it on an individual basis because some people's bad might not be bad for the entire district, but like a couple in the district. So I mean, without a really specific example to look at, I mean, you wouldn't really be able to give a definite, I'm always going to side this side with the district, always this side with the city. Because sometimes it might be, half the district might be good in favor of it, it might be good for half the district and not good or not favorable for half the district. So then you're fighting with different communities. So it's a complicated issue with just a general statement, but I like to say I would look at the information and see what the best situation is for everyone, for the entirety, if it's the city as itself, or if it's the community, the district, half the district. You have to look at what the situation is.
Okay, good, thanks. Greg?
I too would want to know what the project is. I would reach out to the two other district aldermen, and we would sit down and have a discussion. And at that point, we'd invite the community in, and I want to hear how the community feels about it. If the district doesn't feel it's going to help us, I can't support a project that's bad for the district.
Vernon?
Well, this question is almost like a double-edged sword because there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. But the key is to study what is actually going to, if it's going to benefit the city and what the benefits are for the city. And then also go to your district, sit down with the other two aldermen that are there, debate it. Bring the community in, let them know what's going on, have a debate over it, and then come back. And if it's good for the entire city, then yes. If it's bad for the district, then no. It's like I said, it's a double-edged sword. So you pretty much, there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. You just have to go with your heart, with your community, and with what you feel will be right for the city.
Good, thank you. Erica?
When you ask what's good for the city and it would be bad for the district, as soon as you say district, I'm thinking people, the community. I would have to side with the district, and not even knowing what the project is, but just the fact that it would be bad for the district. That means it would be bad for the people. The second district is suffering enough, and I would have to go with the district. And my reasons for that would be because as long as I've been doing my community work, I've been there for the people. I want them to know that I'm still there for them. And if something is going to harm them and make things worse than what it already is, then there's no way possible that I could side with something like that.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mr. Hadley, there are more than 100 vacant lots owned by the city of Waterbury. Do you have any ideas how we might turn these negative assets in the city to positive ones?
Looking at my district first, currently I am in talks with a developer and State Rep Larry Butler, who is the chairman of the chairman of the Housing Committee of the state of Connecticut, and I in talks with the Pearl Foundation. We're looking at doing some housing as far as clusters, possibly individual, but right now we're in the research phase. I would like to do housing. I got a call the other day, and I'm sitting down with a young lady who is interested in doing some, adopting some spots as far as community gardens.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews.
Once again, my main concern would be the blight the empty lots that are in the district. And one is to sit down with the other two district aldermen to find out what's feasible for those lots, whether it be a community garden, redevelopment of housing, or actually redevelopment of some type of small business, or a small business community plus a housing community that's in there in general together, so they all work together. One, to probably offer incentives to people that are coming in if they're going to develop, so that we can get that lot back on the tax roll. Once you get the back on the tax roll, offer an incentive to first-time buyers so that they can buy something in the community, so that they have a sense of responsibility, that they are concerned with their neighborhood. Because the whole thing is, it's all about building community. It's all about building favor so that people can understand what's going on in the district. And you want to have an area that people will feel comfortable with. One of the things that are championing is also the parks. So try to build communities that are around the parks so that people feel that it's safe, that they can go there.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cooper.
For the vacant lots, I would have to speak mainly on for our district, but the second district, I know we could use pocket parks. That's not a lot of money. It wouldn't take a lot out of the budget, and it's something that the community could be involved in and help to build that. So there is a sense of pride in that it would stay there. The other thing is guerrilla gardenings. I know next week a couple of our youth council are going to actually start doing some stuff. So when you take those vacant lots and you beautify them until we get money, as we know the budgets are tight, until we get money, and you beautify those lots by pocket parks, by guerrilla gardenings. Not only are you taking those guerrilla gardens and just having a garden, but that is food that is going to feed the community. So now we have a way and a means of taking care of our community, taking care of each other. So to put up housing and to go that route means money. And where are we going to get the money if the city's already in a tight budget? So I would say pocket parks and guerrilla gardenings.
Thank you. Mr. Guerrera.
I think we have to look at each lot depending on where it is. We have to go to the community and see what that community needs first. And then we can utilize those different lots for multiple options. And I think the second district can be seen as an example of what we can do with these different empty lots. On Hill Street, where I live, they utilized one lot, and they made a community garden. They have somewhat of a greenhouse. They grow vegetables. They grow other things. And that helps with the community because it helps with the food desert that's there. Some individuals don't have a means to get fresh produce, and that helps with that. It's in their community. There's vegetables there. It can help with the children learning how to plant, how to garden. It also provides them with vegetables that sometimes they don't even get to eat other than school. In other options, you can use that to make a park somewhere for individuals to play. It might also be used, depending on where it's located, to be made into some kind of parking space. Some places, the housing has no driveways. People end up parking on the streets, and that often causes either congested streets, or in the winter, it causes trouble with plowing. So we have to look at what the community can utilize these different spaces for. And I think the other thing is to make sure we do this on a timely basis. We might have the empty lot, and with it sitting there, it just can cause more trouble. It can turn into blight itself. It can become a dumping ground. And then when that happens, it just brings things into the community that you don't necessarily want there.
Thank you very much.
Who gets the question? So this is a question for Vernon Matthews. Currently, there is no orientation for the members of the Board of Aldermen. You get elected and you just hit the ground running. Do you support developing a program that would educate every board member about Robert's Rules of Order, what a caucus is, how to propose an ordinance? If so, would you be willing to spend a few Saturdays learning the ins and outs of being a good legislator for Waterbury?
I truly would applaud to be able to be a part of that. When you're a newcomer, you do have to learn what's going on for your city. And if you don't know the proper ways and means of doing things with the city, you don't want to expose yourself as, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. You want to be able to go in there and know how to caucus. You want to know how to go in to sit down and listen to what your constituents are saying to you, and know how to go back to the board when it's a closed session and let them know what's going on. So yes, I definitely would enjoy doing that. And I could give up a couple of Saturdays, a couple of Mondays, Tuesdays, and Sundays as well.
That's great. Erica, same question?
I think that's a great idea. I definitely would support it. I would also hope that in those trainings that they would also put in a diversity training. I think that's very important, being that we're dealing with such a diverse district. A lot of times we don't see that in many things that happen. Like you said, you just take off on the ground running and you're blindsided by things that you had no knowledge of. So I would definitely give up many Saturdays for that. But I would also like for them to implement a diversity training in that as well.
That's great. Francis, the same question, and for you and Greg, just a little wrinkle in it is that you both were elected, and then, boom, you're alderman. So maybe a little bit about your experience, too, is what it was like, just being intimidating, probably a little bit.
Yep. From my experience, I think it's even more impressive because it happened after the implementation of alderman by district. Before, with aldermen as a whole, a lot of individuals who were put on the ballot and elected probably had some kind of knowledge of what was going on already. Now that it's alderman by district, a lot of individuals in the community are wanting to get more involved and might not necessarily know how the formalities of the meetings work. I myself was thrown like a deer into the headlights doing this, and I have to say that I had great mentors with Stephen Giacomi and Stephanie Cummings. They helped myself and Roger, who is in the 5th District, who also had to learn just as much as I did very quickly. I think having some kind of class that can help you get through this would help a lot, because for myself, the first couple of meetings, you ended up sitting there, you didn't want to say something out of place and make yourself look like you were doing something inappropriate or even speaking out of term and at the wrong time. And I think that if those classes were put into place, that it would make the new board a lot more functional, a lot more quicker. Because the first couple of meetings, it seemed like it was only the same individuals leading everything. And I think that if you had the newcomers start right away, it would help the meetings be a lot more diverse, a lot more beneficial, a lot more functional. So I think some kind of class would be the best thing to do.
Great. Same question to Greg. A little bit about your experience, too.
Being involved in the community and being an advocate for youth, addressing the Board of Aldermen on the other side is totally different. I can remember my first alderman meeting when I sat down at my seat. I said, whoa, this is different. The government process is not what everybody thinks it is. You got to be in it to know it and see it. And I welcome an orientation, and that's what we're talking about, being orientated to what alderman does. And yes, I will welcome it.
That's great.
This, who's next? Ms. Cooper, why do you believe you are the best person to represent the interest in your district?
I believe that I'm the best person to represent my district because I'm constantly out there talking to the community. When there's an issue, I try to address it, and when they say that we can't, there is no funding, I find ways. I just don't sit around and say, okay, well, we're going to work it out, and having meetings and there's nothing done. So I believe that I'm the best candidate for my district because I believe in the people. I listen to what they have to say, and once we sit down and we talk about what the issues are, I find a way to address them and to put work over words. I believe that when it comes to mainly the youth in our district, I've proven myself time and time again by putting in numerous programs from the after school to the summer program to our youth social change. Whenever there's an issue, whether it has to do with education and a parent doesn't understand something, I am there at the school with that parent to be a support system. So me being visible and having that face where people know me, where the community trusts me, I believe that I would be the best candidate because I'm just like them.
Thank you. Mr. Guerrera.
I think I'm the best candidate because I listen a lot and I have a lot of patience. Oftentimes people look at that and they might see it as a negative, even possibly crack jokes about it. But I can sit there and listen to someone for 15 minutes, not even say a word, and then when they're done talking, I take what they said and I implement what they've said, and I try to tackle the obstacle and the issues that they addressed. And a lot of times people see that and they're like, oh, I thought you were probably just sitting there not even paying attention to what I was saying. Also, I think my age also helps with this. It gives me an insight into what the youth is looking at, and also the individuals, the young adults who are looking at starting a new family. Myself, after just graduating college, all the individuals that I went to school with, going to UConn and Waterbury, a lot of them would say the first thing I want to do is leave Waterbury. And that upset me a lot. I wanted to try and look at this and see how can I make the community I want to live in rather than abandoning the community to try and find some kind of ideal on a hill somewhere. I think I work a lot with individuals. I work at St. Vincent de Paul Homeless Shelter. It's the largest homeless shelter in the city as well as in the state. And I really like just helping individuals. By helping individuals, you can try to help them by any means necessary. And being an alderman, you can help take that information from your work, from your daily life, and help make a kind of community that individuals want to live in, that they want to stay in, that they want to help grow, and that people want to come from outside and come into Waterbury and this district.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hadley.
Could you repeat the question, please?
The question is, why do you believe you are the best person to represent the interests of your district?
I believe my record speaks for itself as a current alderman. We've addressed issues with blight. We've addressed issues with housing. A good example would be the Davis Gardens. I know my colleague is trying to take credit for this one, but I was on this before he was on the Board of Aldermen, so those are projects that we have successfully completed. Also, I'm an advocate for youth. I am constantly in the community. I'm volunteering as a director because I deferred my director salary to hire part-time youth. I also give my alderman stipend plus more back to the community. And that kind of separates me from the other candidates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Matthews.
Well, what makes me or has me stand out more so than the other three people that are on the panel, I am currently a commissioner with the Parks Department. One of the biggest projects that I was in tow with was the renovation of Lakewood Park. $700,000 that was done at Lakewood Park. But what makes me stand out the most is I love my city. I love my district. And that given the chance to sit down in the Aldermanic chamber, people will understand how much I love the city. Not only have I written 4 books about the city of Waterbury, when I'm on any radio station, regardless if it's in Connecticut or if it's on Sirius XM or wherever I am, everybody knows what Waterbury, Connecticut is, because it is the center of the universe, and I love this city. I love it with a passion.
Thank you very much.
Who gets the question? Erica? Okay. Thanks for keeping track, Ken. Everyone wants lower taxes, but do you have a specific idea how to lower the mill rate in Waterbury?
Okay. The main thing we have to do that we can help lower the mill rate is try to raise the grand list. One way we can do that is to look at how we can motivate businesses to come into Waterbury, as well as even just individuals coming in to move into Waterbury, to live in Waterbury. And that is a struggle to try and do that. I know the big dream everyone's looking at is Amazon, but that's like trying to carve a statue out of Mount Everest. We have to kind of look at different little things that can come. One big business is great, it would help out a lot, but bring in household businesses, small businesses can help the city a lot. My grandfather has his own tailor shop, and it might be one little tiny one-person business, but if the whole community, if multiple people do that in the community and bring in small businesses, that would help raise the grand list. Also, what we can do is help try and reduce spending where we can. One thing we can do is education. We have to look at how we can cut the spending for education, not by cutting spending and reducing services, but by looking at creative options of how we can do this. One thing that was talked about a lot, but not much has been done, is school vouchers. I think we really have to look into that and see if that's a possibility, if that can assist the situation. We might look into it and see it's not a viable option, but I think what we have to do is look at these options and try to do something rather than sitting on our hands and just doing the same thing over and over and saying, oh, we can't do this anymore, now we have to raise the mill rate again. So we have to look at doing these creative options, seeing if we can over time wean it down little by little, even if it's just by half a mil here, half a mil there over the course of years. We have to try and start doing something rather than doing nothing.
Thank you. Greg?
You know what, I'm going to call it a trickle-down effect. With 45 in office, we don't know what to expect. That comes down federally, state, and local. I would love to lower taxes. My concern is I don't want to cut services that are benefiting our people. Our education budget is huge. I don't want to cut classrooms. If we have to cut, we should cut at the top. And that's what all the departments in the city, if we do have to cut. But at this point, I would have to think more and get more creative of how we can cut the budget and lower the taxes.
Thank you. Vernon?
Well, with 60 mills being the second highest in the state of Connecticut, there's definitely something wrong with the spending, and there's some oversights that has to be looked at. being, like, this is also a double-edged sword question, because where do you cut? Who do you cut? What needs to be cut? I would have to say, yes, you do need to cut from the top, because there's a lot of heads that are heads that are heads. How many heads do you really need to run a ship? So, you know, we have to look at where we're spending the money at, what the money is being spent on, and why it's affecting the mill rate the way that it is, and try to work on ways to cut the overexpenditures that we're seeing on a daily basis.
Thank you. Same question, Erica?
So, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have this magic wand or I can give you the answers or dance around how we're going to cut the taxes and things like that. But what I will tell you is that when I look in the newspaper or I sit and go to different meetings, I see that we are spending so much money on specialists for different education purposes, or we're putting money for one, we could say like the bike trail. And when you talk to residents, they're like, we don't need that right now. Where is that money going to come from? So for me, I would say, I mean, we talk about all this money that's being put into different programs that we really don't have to do. So I'm a true believer in, yeah, we can cut back on the specialists that we're bringing into the city for education purposes. And we all say we don't want to cut education. That's true, but there are things there that we just don't need that is spending way too much money. So for me, we can, with the community, create programs that we are able to do, that there are other grants for, and that we can do it that way. I can't sit here and tell you that I know how to cut the right now at this time.
We have one more question, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break and switch into the 5th district. So this is your last question.
Who is it? Greg? Francis.
Mr. Guerrera has to answer the last question.
I know.
Right?
I just started the first. that
Did
one.
you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. The last question to Mr. Hadley. Citizen involvement in local government, including voting, is very low. What would you do to encourage and inspire citizens to take an interest in and participate in their local government?
I'm not sure what they do in the schools, but I know when I went to school, we had mock elections. I can remember my very first one, JFK. That was one of my first ones. I would like to see it in the schools. And the Wow Center, every election that comes up, we do a mock election. We talk about the candidates who are running. It's more of an educating our young people, because I spoke in church yesterday and I said, our ancestors fought, they got killed, and they went to jail. And it's disrespectful of especially African Americans not to vote because of what our people sacrificed.
I'm sorry, Mr. Matthews.
Well, just like Greg said, I can remember at St. Mary's Grammar School, the first election that I actually was Carter. And it was fun because it engaged you in what was going on in politics. I also grew up in a political household, so it was pretty much instilled in me different things and views of how to go out and vote, what the importance of the vote was. But we have to engage these young people and let them know the importance of the right to vote and what that vote really, truly, honestly is for the community, for the nation, for that person, because sometimes everything isn't always right.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cooper.
Did you repeat the question?
citizen involvement in local government, including voting, is very low. What would you do to encourage and inspire citizens to take an interest in and participate in their local government?
I believe, after talking and knocking on doors to residents, that the voting is so low because people are tired of the same old, same old, same old. Like they say, it's time for new blood. So they get to the point where they just they don't believe in the system anymore. We have to bring them back to believing in the system and us being visual so that they are able to see us and believe in what we say. And when we say we're going to do something, we implement that. That, I believe, would bring out more voters. Actually, when we talk about the younger voters, I believe that there's a great amount of young people that have now taken a liking to politics. They're paying more attention. I know for me, with our youth council, we sit and we're, sometimes even with the 5th District youth, and we're sitting and we're talking about politics. So there are a lot of youth that are involved in politics and are really taking place. But for us to keep them involved in our local government and keep the community involved, they need to believe in us, because if they don't, then they're not going to come out and vote. A lot of them don't even know about this election right now, so that says a lot. That says that somebody's not doing something right.
Thank you very much. Mr. Guerrera.
I think what we have to try and do is get people to look at local elections differently. A lot of people see local elections and they say, oh, these are low politics, it's not that important. What can they do? The national elections, the president, Congress, they do so much more. But I think that's the wrong way to look at it. The local politicians and the local elections have a greater impact on someone's individual life than what the president does on his daily life, or what Congress does. I think it really has to look at education and also showing people and letting people see what the local government does. A lot of times people are bombarded on the television with national politics, and they don't really see what happens with the local politics. How this can be addressed, it's multiple bags of different things. We have to try and get out into the education, with education, and show people this. I think it would be interesting if we looked at making a class, maybe not a full semester class, but even just a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, and then looking at just the city politics, what the aldermen do, who are the aldermen, what's the mayor, what's the Board of Education, what do they do? I think it would be interesting if they just had a class like that. They looked at the agenda that was going to happen the next meeting, and they discussed it in the class and said, oh, this is what the aldermen are voting on, or this is something the mayor's doing. If kids see what's happening and what the local politicians are doing, they'll see that it has a bigger impact on them than what anything is happening on the national level, possibly the state level, but I think the local politics have to be introduced to everyone's individual lives so they can visually see how great of an impact it is and how close it is to them, rather than just being bombarded with things on the news or commercials of bigger politicians that may not have an impact on them.
Thank you very much.
So that's a wrap. I'd like to thank all 4 of you, brave souls, for putting yourselves in front of us, and best wishes to all of you. November 7th is Election Day. Thank you. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to make up this question about the sewage treatment plant.
Okay.
And then what are you doing next?
I'm going to go to this question as my number one question.
Okay, and then we'll just start crossing things
Yeah.
out. Greetings and welcome to the 5th District Aldermanic debate. So thank all of you for coming and being brave and sitting in those seats. It's not an easy thing to do. The first question that I'd like to address to you guys involves an incident that just occurred in Waterbury on October 9th. There was 5 million gallons of raw sewage that ended up being dumped into the Naugatuck River. And the 5th District, a lot of it is right nestled on the river. And so as incumbent alderman or alderman that will be sworn in on December 1st, how can you deal with a situation like this? What sort of response do you think the alderman should be having to this? Is this something that should be on the agenda for the Board of Aldermen? And we'll start with Sandra Martinez-McCarthy.
Hello, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for showing up. This is very informative meeting here, and I think it's great that everyone showed up, and I want to thank you, too, for having us here. With regards to the sewage, I think it's very important that the community, that we all, everyone affected, not only the 5th District, but the whole city of Waterbury, we should have been told from the very beginning what happened. Not only am I a citizen, in the 5th District, but something like that not only affects us, but it also affects the air that we breathe. And there are many people with health problems. And something like that can affect us big time. I think we have to implement some sort of maybe something on our phone where we can get, how we get the thunderstorm warning. We can get some sort of warning that's happening in the city of Waterbury. I think that would be beneficial to everyone.
Thank you. Brenda Liz-Cotto, same question.
Thank you. Well, I'm not only a member of the Board of Aldermen, but I'm also the liaison for the Environmental Control Commission. And I found out about the sewage incident on October 18 because the chair of the Environmental Control Commission sent me a text message with the article on the newspaper. So with that being said, that says right there and there that we have an issue of communication that we have to deal with. I was talking to the mayor, and we are currently working with the DEEP, and we are working on revising the policies and creating new, if necessary, and procedures for the new protocol that is going to be in place. At the end of this week, we are going to have that in writing available for the public. So that's one thing that we are working on. We hire a company that is cleaning the river, and that company was suggested by the DEEP. And we are working in an investigation with the police department also that is expected to conclude at the end of this week. After we have the complete investigation and the report, then we will have a meeting with the public to announce those findings. But until that, we will not make more statements. However, I want to make sure that that new protocol with the new procedures is in place and that we can work together and the city takes full responsibility of not being adequate in announcing to the public and to the Department of Health about this incident and the ones in the past.
Thank you. Same question, Roger Sherman.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to say thank you for the residents that came out to join us this evening. Thank you to John and Ken for hosting this forum. And concerning the first spill or the second spill in October, I think there was disappointment amongst everyone in the community when we found out that 5 million gallons of raw sewage had been pumped out into the Naugatuck River. Considering all the hard work from volunteers throughout the city, throughout outlying towns, Naugatuck is apparently where we first found out about the issue with the fish kill down there at the Polish American Club. What I hope to see implemented after this is a clear means to communicate with the city of Waterbury and, if needed, the cities and towns downstream from our sewer treatment plant. I know it's a difficult task. Maybe the Waterbury Republican or some way through one of the news stations might be a good means to communicate that information. I'd also like to make sure that all of our maintenance is up to par on our electrical systems and our generators. We're hearing two different stories concerning this. Whatever ends up happening in the end, we just want to make sure that our sewer treatment plant is functioning properly and is able to function under a failure like what we experienced, though extreme due to a line being cut. We want to make sure that normal maintenance that you see throughout the nation is taken in our sewer treatment plant. I don't want to see anybody to lose their job. Unless there's gross negligence, we're humans and we make mistakes. But it's important that the residents of Waterbury are notified. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Duvall, same question.
And thank you, John and Ken. It's nice to be here. It's happy to see a large crowd of people that took time out of their schedule to come and listen to this debate. I concur with my friend Roger regarding improved communication and transparency. First and foremost, I think that if we had a better response or a quicker response in informing the public about the incident, we would have a little less concern. It's an environmental travesty, but if we had improved communication, we could mend the damage that was caused by the delayed response. I'm particularly concerned with the release of toxins, particularly mercury and phosphorus, but I'm looking forward to learning more about the proposals to implement. I heard that there's a $9 million pretreatment facility in the works, in addition to the city's $40 million reduction facility to meet upcoming state standards. We have a responsibility to protect the environment. I think that that's something that goes beyond party lines. We can all agree that the environment is something that is not a low priority thing. It should be a very high priority thing, if not the highest, because of the ways that we abuse the environment and neglect our responsibilities as conservators of our community. I believe that we could do more together to improve the protections and to communicate that to the people that live in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Bullard.
Hello, thank you
Hi.
for having me.
Thank you.
It's my understanding that the aldermen are almost like the fact checkers. and they check the city leaders to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do and making sure that they're following their role. So I think you have to start there and make sure that the person in charge of the plant has not only a preventative plan, but a corrective action plan in the case that an event like this would happen. We know that it happened in April. We're unaware if it had happened again because we're just finding out that it happened in April as well as a couple weeks ago. I think an investigation has to be looked into how many times and what can we do to correct the communication. I also think that the person in charge of the plant or the alderman have to make sure that the generators are being checked, to make sure that the equipment is functional, to prevent any occurrence of this happening again, and for the citizens to not feel like, if this happens again, am I going to find out? Because again, this happened in April that we know of for the first time, and we're just finding out months later.
Thank you.
Citizen involvement in local government, including voting, is very low. What would you do to encourage and inspire citizens to take an interest in and participate in their local government? Ms. Cotto?
Thank you. Education is imperative to educate our residents. Waterbury is a transition city. We have people that have lived here all their lives, but we have a lot of residents that have moved from one part of the city to the other, or from outside the city, near to the city. And so we have to educate every single person that comes here on the importance of going out and vote, of how the system works, on what is your voice value in regards how we are all co-creators of our circumstances, and most importantly, that every single person is important. Our elderlies are our queens and kings. Our youth are our future. And us, the ones that are working hard are the ones that are building up the city. And so we all are co-creators, and in order for us to make sure that our rights are heard, we have to go out and vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sherman.
Thank you. I'd like to mirror Alderwoman Cotto's idea on education. We have many venues that are owned by the city, like the rec centers, partially funded PAL. I think maybe and within the schools, we make it a bit more of an initiative to educate our students on what's involved with voting. A lot of people are a little disenfranchised when they see what's going on at the national level in our country. And a lot of people don't understand how effective their vote can be at the local level. The neighborhood association meetings, I think, would be a great place to try and foster individuals getting out to vote. The gathering, I think, would be a great place. You know, we have a tremendous amount of people in Library Park. We have voter booths, registration booths, something like that. So I have to agree with Alderwoman Cotto. Education is a key when it comes to getting more people involved with voting in our city.
Thank you very much. Mr. Duvall.
Getting citizen involvement in local government is, first, we have to appreciate that community service is the highest good, and inspiring that in our children, particularly through our schools, would be a great start to getting folks more enthusiastic about participation. A lot of folks feel disenfranchised and believe that their voice is very small compared to what we see in the media. There's a lot of ways of serving our community that is lost in popularity. Local government, part of public service, that entity of bureaucracy which organizes and executes those services which are geared to serving our basic needs as citizens needs to be part of our education, of course, but something that I've done in order to promote public service. For the last couple of years, I've been a police officer here in the city of Waterbury. I've enjoyed the honor and privilege of doing so, and a couple of months back, we started making progress on something that began last year to create a police and fire museum. And this was inspired in part by the need to educate the community, but also inspire young people to community service. So indirectly answering, I do hope that we could, through that and other initiatives, inspire children through mock debates and an argument, logical argument, not emotional argument, not arguing because of a viewpoint that is shared by a political party, but the topic at heart and the subject matter needs to be debated in a logical way, and I believe that we could teach that to our children.
Thank you. Ms. Bullard.
All right. I continued door knocking. That's how you're going to get people engaged. They want to see your face. They want to know who you are. And they respect the fact that you cared enough to come on their property and meet them where they are, instead of them having to come to you all the time. So I would like to meet people where they are, on a level where they are. And youth involvement is very important. When I'm out there and I'm door knocking, I have my brother, I have my neighbor's kids, to the point where they're asking me, when are we going out again? It's getting them exposed to the process, getting them exposed to what it takes to go out there and campaign, and getting them exposed to the people and how to greet people, and just kind of those social skills that are there. In getting involved with the youth, I don't understand why we as aldermen can't come down to the schools and do a meet and greet there and meet the kids and get them exposed to see this is what an alderman is. Because how are you going to vote for alderman if you don't know what it is? So I think that, and restoring back the rapport with the public and letting them know your vote counts. And your vote counts because you voted me in, I'm listening to your concern, and I'm going to vote in favor of what you want as a constituent. Continued attendance to the community meetings where the residents meet. They know about the community meetings, and in meeting the residents there and meeting those concerns and engaging with them, I think is also important. As well as continued meet and greets, not just during election year, but throughout the year, twice a year, 4 times a year, again, so you can meet the people where they are. And if you are in a neighboring district and they're having a community function, whether it's a community walk, a community cleanup, going and meeting the constituents and going and just being participatory so they can see you and they see that you're working in your community.
Thank you very much. Ms. McCarthy, Martinez McCarthy.
Thank you. I agree with everyone here. Education is key. One sad note that I did notice as we were door knocking, a lot of people didn't know that there's an election on November 7th. And I'm thinking not only the education is important, but also to know your community. You need to learn how to communicate with your community, especially in Spanish. There were a lot of people who did not know, and especially people who are coming from different countries to the city of Waterbury. They need to be aware. I love going to the community meetings. I love getting to know people, and just taking some time and just speaking to everyone. I always say my door's always open. You can call me, text me, email me, come see me in my home. I lived in the same home for over 20 years, so everyone knows who I am. So my door's always open to everyone. And I always mention that education is very important. Thank you.
very much.
So this question is for Roger Sherman. There is no orientation for the members of the Board of Aldermen. Do you support developing a program that would educate every board member about Robert's Rules of Order, what a caucus is, and how to propose an ordinance? If so, would you be willing to spend a few Saturdays learning the ins and outs of being a good legislator in Waterbury? And those three incumbents that are up there, if you could just share an anecdote about how paralyzing the experience is when you're sitting in that chair and you don't know what's going on, really.
I 100% agree and would support something like that, and not just an inaugural type class, but an ongoing class. You know, maybe every couple of years, someone that's been a community leader should be not necessarily required, but have those classes available to them. Not only available to the aldermen or Board of Education or other elected city officials. These classes should be open to the public, I believe. I think that they should know how our government is designed to function. I think the education, as far as that goes, should be both ways. And I was absolutely petrified. First time I spoke on the board. I still struggle with public speaking. I push through it. I do it because I love this city. But that would be a wonderful idea to have classes for oncoming freshman aldermen. I highly support that.
Great. Justin, same question.
Before I became a candidate for the Board of Aldermen, I didn't have a good understanding about how our local government works, despite working in it. As an employee of the executive branch of government, I'm charged with the responsibilities of enforcing the law, but not developing it. I've become a fan of city ordinances and have been made the go-to guy for how to use them. When the Board of Aldermen passes a new ordinance like it did just several weeks ago for the panhandling ordinance, I get to share that new tool with other officers. The mystery of government is, I think, what protects the elite or the people who tend to make a career out of being a public servant. I don't look at it as a job. I think it's a responsibility when everybody reaches a certain age that they get more involved in improving their community. And I believe wholeheartedly that ongoing education for public servants, whether it's in any particular field or agency, from ongoing training, which is required of police officers. Every couple of years we have to do in-service regional training, as well as stay sharp on all of our strategies and tools that we use on the job. But as far as educating on ongoing basis and for new aldermen, I would be in favor of that. As you could tell, I could benefit for some more education myself.
That's great. Elizabeth, same question.
I think it would be fantastic. As a new alderperson, you're going to be challenged with so many different things coming right from the gate, such as this spill into the river. And it would be helpful to have this course, even periodically throughout the year, to keep you abreast of, make sure you're doing things correctly. And it would take away some of that trying to advocate for the people, learn how to do this, and all these other things, such as when you start a new job. It's kind of nerve-wracking to go, learn how to do the new job, and tackle the crisis of that job. So I think it would be fantastic. I think it would be great to listen to some of the sitting aldermen and some that have resigned or are no longer sitting and hear their experiences so that it can create a collaboration between all the parties. I think it would be great.
Thank you. Sandra?
I think I should have my own microphone down here. I do agree with everyone with regards to having kind of orientation. As Roger mentioned, this is our first time that when we went into office, it was nerve-wracking. We didn't know what to do. I happened to ask a few people, what do I do next? Where do I go? Where do I sit? What do I do? And having some sort of training not only would benefit us to be a more effective alderman, but it would benefit the city. It would benefit all the citizens here. One of the things that I do understand is that as an older woman, you are working for, it's not work, you're helping the citizens of the city that you love. And in order to protect that city, I'm the main line of defense. They will talk to me and, I'll try to help them out, do what I can. So in order to be more effective, we do need kind of like an orientation, and I don't mind giving up every Saturday to do something like that. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you. Brenda?
Well, when I was appointed in October 2016, the first question that I asked was, where is the guidance? So the only instructions that I received them from State Rep Jerry Reyes and from Sandra. And from there, it was all on my own. And so for me, it didn't make sense that there was not a structure, that there was not a training for us. But I realized that there are certain systems that are placed with a purpose. And for the city leaders to appoint or to elect people that are going to be doing such an important work as the one that we do and not provide training, well, I wonder what's behind that, what's behind ignorance. And so in my first meeting, I made tons of phone calls and research, and then I went with my package and I stood there and I sat down and I made all the questions that I had to make, but I wanted it above all to make a point, and is that if I was appointed as an alderwoman for the city of Waterbury, you will have to count on my voice, my vote for every single decision. I am not the person that just follows. I'm the person that finds out for myself, and I made the best decision.
Thank you.
There are pockets of Waterbury that are very dangerous. Car robberies are rampant in the city. What role can an alderman have in making the city safer? It's easy to say you're for a safer city, but exactly what would you do to accomplish that, and do you have a plan? The question first goes to Mr. Duval.
This is my favorite question. Obviously, public safety is a big concern of mine. I cannot speak for the police department. I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. But what I have had has been a crash course in the things that ail our city. I've walked our neighborhoods. A big part of the 5th District is my area of responsibility, and I've walked those streets in those neighborhoods that are dangerous. And a lot of the things that make them dangerous is that people don't frequent them. And the reasons why is because there are drug dealers loitering in front of the bodegas, or there are prostitutes walking on the streets, or there are a rash of smash and grabs or burglaries, things that would make anybody paranoid. I don't think that there are insurmountable challenges, honestly. The biggest issues, I believe, that affect public safety in the city of Waterbury is that we need more officers. We need to be competitive on a state level to compensate those officers for the dangers that they endure. And having had firsthand experience of that, I can say that when you go into a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of normal contact with the police, it's a novelty. I've gone up into Martin Luther King Park, and I've seen heroin baggies on the ground. I've seen needles on the playground, and I've also seen drug dealers. And my task as an alderman is someone that can go deal with those issues myself directly as a police officer, but also promote an understanding with the community and to build bridges to help the public and the police department work together to achieve a safer community.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bullard.
I think, we have to look at why is it happening. Are we having a lot of break-ins because someone is stealing to get money to provide for their family? Are they drug-related? Do we have to take care of the drug epidemic that we're happening? So I think first is identifying why the crime is happening and why is it most frequently. I also think community engagement is another key piece because I don't think the officers can do it alone. I think it takes every citizen to say, we're not having this in our neighborhood. When you first see the drug dealers coming into your neighborhood, whether it's reaching out to your community officers if you're feeling unsafe, it's saying, you know what, as a community, we're going to band together. We're not going to stand for this. I'm not going to let my kids come up and down the street and there's people unsavory outside. So I think we have to really band together, whether it's creating more neighborhood watches, because again, the police cannot be everywhere. So we have to, I think, identify our role as citizens and see what it is that we can do. I think it's also coordinating with the police and those who are responsible for our safety to see where is the lack of funding and where, again, can us as citizens supplement that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Martinez-McCarthy.
I do believe that we need more police officers, and I do believe that we do need more of an incentive to keep them here. We also need more of community involvement. One specific thing that comes to my mind is if you see something, say something. And I know especially in any area, there's a lot of people that say, it's not my problem, I'm not going to deal with it. But it is everyone's problem. And I think just speaking up as a community, it's all about the community. We have to work together with the police. We do. I would also love to see more community police officers in our neighborhoods. Just the presence would affect everything. I do remember one time where there were police officers, like a subdivision in different areas. I do miss that. I wish we would, we could bring that back, and that's something that I'm interested in bringing back. But the most important thing is we do need more police officers and provide better incentives, especially if they live and work in the city of Waterbury. I think that is tremendous.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cotto.
I agree with everyone. I believe that we must take care of our first responders, first of all. We are hiring new policemen. We are training currently new policemen. I also think that we have to take also responsibility as residents and take care of one another. And I mean speaking up, calling when it's necessarily, making that phone call. And also, I think that we as leaders and our mayor, the Board of Aldermen, different agencies, has to make sure that the people that are being dropped in this city, that has been incarcerated, that have been left out of programs, that are taken care of, and that Waterbury is no longer the center for all those people that are in need to come. There are other cities. Why Waterbury? It's time that we speak up and we take care of that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Sherman.
Thank you. I fully support fully staffing our police department. We have a problem, though, with our police department in that we have attrition. Our police officers are getting trained and they're leaving for greener pastures, whether it be for salary or for, in all frankness, an easier job. Waterbury is not necessarily an easy city to be a police officer. Whether it be salaries, whether it be giving police officers a tax break, if they become a homeowner in the city of Waterbury, they become a little more vested in the city. I think trying to address all of these issues without addressing the reason why we're at the same level of the police officers now as we were about a year ago or 2 years ago when we had the academy graduate 30 new police officers. It's a continual issue that needs to be addressed in order to address this issue. And that will in turn help. One of the second biggest issues that I hear from when I knock on doors is police response times. We have a lot of times our residents are probably giving up on even calling when they see people out on the streets doing whatever they may be doing, selling drugs, what have you. If they're calling and they're not showing up for 2 or 3 hours, if they show at all, a lot of times they're not going to call again when they see it again, and then it's just a vicious cycle. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is for Elizabeth. Many residents in Waterbury are unclear about the power and responsibility of an alderman. It's the mayor that sets the agenda in the city, and it's the board of aldermen that supports or opposes the mayor's initiatives. With the implementation of aldermen by district, the hope was that aldermen would vote on citywide issues and champion district issues at the board. So this is the general question to all of you guys. So if you're an incumbent, can you cite a specific issue from your district that you have championed? And if you're a challenger, can you cite the #1 district issue that you plan to represent on the board?
Besides involvement in education of the residents, because I think that is the #1 thing, is getting the residents' viewpoint. I think that would be it, going and seeing what it is that the residents want and what they need, versus this, I'm going to tackle this issue. I want to know what is the main issue that's going on and what is the main issue that needs to be addressed, for our district. And I would want to investigate that, and I would want to see how can we make this better for our district. So I think that would be reaching out and having more of a dialogue between the residents versus me getting up here and saying I'm going to tackle taxes, crime, or this. I would want to really see what it is that is the heart of the issue for our district.
Thank you. Back to Sandra.
Okay, one of the issues that I actually enjoyed and proud to help put forward, is Brass City Harvest. I think that it's important that, we learn to take pride in our city, grow our own crops, and, forward them to the children in the school. I think that's something that's great. Another issue that I would implement that I actually spoke with my colleague here is changing the noise ordinance. When you're at home and you have to get up 5, 6, 7 in the morning and you hear a car driving by with the bass so loud that it wakes you up from a deep sleep, we have a problem. That's something that we're interested in putting forward. So it's not only the older woman or the older men has to not only be vigilant within the community, but also within the city, because I've heard many different people, not even in my community, complain of the same issues. So that's something that, I would like to bring forward.
Thank you. Brenda?
I challenge by taking action and getting involved. For example, I saw a lot of our issues in regards human rights, and so I asked the Board of Aldermen and the President if I could be the liaison for the Human Rights Commission, and I started working with them. It was not assigned to me. I asked for it. I saw the problem that we have in the South with the unemployment, and when I was asked to be a part of the Working Cities Challenge initiative, I said yes, and I've been working in that. I saw the problem that we have in the Department of Education with the lack of diverse teachers and staff, and so I was asked to be a part of the CHR Advisory Committee, and I'm working on that. I have seen a lot of things, and every time I see something, I get involved, and I work, and that's how I challenge. We have to work together. Pointing out fingers is not gonna help, but we have to look in front of the issue and admit it in order for us to start fixing it. And so that's what I do. That's how I challenge.
Roger?
Could I please ask you to repeat the question?
Oh, sure. The Monarch notes of it is, if you're an incumbent, can you cite a specific issue from your district that you have championed?
I think most recent, a lot of us are familiar with the second spill that was found out on April 16th. That was my Google foo skills that found out about that initial spill, which has prompted more questions throughout the community, a lot of outrage, rightfully so. Discovering lack of communication between departments in the city is a little disheartening. To find out that the mayor discovered that it was a 5 million gallon spill via a Michael Puffer article is disheartening. That would be most recent. Other issues, I've been very active with the neighborhood associations, helping them clean up areas. And that would be it. Thank you.
Sure. So for Justin, just to refresh the question for you, it's if you're a challenger, what would be the issue that number one to you in the district?
The number one thing for me is I want to hit the ground running. I've been devising a strategy to deal with several issues that are afflicting downtown in particular, the vacant storefronts, the annoying panhandling incidents, doing more homeless outreach, and proactive police presence downtown, which is my job. I intend to implement something called the Waterbury Green District to replace the Central Business District, to strategize through public-private partnerships to get the vacant storefronts downtown to start, not only filled with businesses that worked together with the existing small businesses, perhaps through tax incentives or getting the property owners on board with a committee of small business owners that could together perhaps start a chain of events that would lead to the revitalization of downtown. This would also include officers on bikes, and it would include being responsive to public reports through like I Report Waterbury It's an app you could download for your phone, as well as encouraging positive dialogue between the public safety infrastructure and the people that live in the neighborhoods that are affected by these things. I want to have the sidewalks power washed. I want to see hanging planters on the light poles. I want to see block parties in the neighborhoods, not just once a year or twice a year, but perhaps once a month downtown, where we could get people together to have that together action that would really foster positive relations all around.
Thank you.
The next question will go to Ms. Martinez McCarthy. There are more than 100 vacant lots owned by the city of Waterbury. Do you have any interesting ideas on how we might turn these negative city assets into positive assets?
One thing that I would love to see is more affordable housing. There seems to be an influx of more people that are homeless. They don't have anywhere to go. So I think that we do need more housing. We also need more community parks. I think that would be great. Community gardens, anything than an empty lot. Empty lot brings trouble, and I don't want to see that anywhere. But there is a lot of things that can be done with that. And I think just by bringing anything forward into that lot would be a plus for the city. Whatever it is, as long as it benefits the city, I think it would be great. I'm just tired of seeing empty lots. And as an older woman, that's something that I would definitely work on. And get input from the community too. What would you like to see in that lot? What would you like to see in your community? That's something that would benefit. It's a win-win for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cotto.
I think that I would like to transform those empty lots in spaces where our youth can be and spend time, quality time, healthy time, where our elders can have quality time, quality life, sharing it with other people, where different classes, poor class, middle class, wealthy class, can come together. I would like to invest in making sure that we are targeting our population, our students, especially the ones that are coming out from the university and living in our city, staying here. What is there for them? Do we have enough places for them so that they can stay here and invest here? Do we have places, enough places for our elder so that they can enjoy their lives without worrying? That's what I want. And I want all of us to be able to have quality life here in Waterbury.
Thank you. Mr. Sherman.
Thank you. We've kind of have this idea of creating shopping areas in the 2nd and 5th District to hearken to days back when you used to be able to find everything you needed within your own neighborhood. Maybe if there's enough of these lots close enough together, we could try and start something like that. Try and, whether it be a bodega, a laundromat, whatever that particular area needs. I know I'd like to see a cobbler back in town. I must be able to get my shoes resold in the area. Aside from something like that, possibly, I don't know where the funds would come from for this. but we have, I believe, one satellite library in the city, maybe a small satellite library where outside of it being a library, we could have some of these meetings that we've brought up this evening with aldermen or other city officials, whether it be the local community police officer. Outside of issues like that, with these lots, a green space, a garden for the neighborhood that was managed by, whether it be a neighborhood association or a few of the neighbors in that street. Possibly giving it to the adjacent homeowner, especially if it's a multifamily. Most families don't have one car anymore like we did back in the 50s and 60s. Most families have one car per person, and we don't have the room for it anymore. And then we complain about the snow being built up throughout our city. If we can get some of those streets off the parking lot, off the street, and into these empty lots, turned into a parking lot at a discounted tax rate initially, I think that would be beneficial to the city.
Thank you very much. Mr. Duval?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. There are more than 100 vacant lots owned by the city of Waterbury. Do you have any ideas on how we might turn these negative city assets into positive ones?
I've seen let's take the area north of Grove Street. There's a lot of vacant properties, a lot of abandoned homes, and how that interrelates to the crime in those communities. Regardless of what is done with the property, the vacant homes that are in, irreparable condition need to go. So we need to, take the initiative to just demolish them. I agree with Mr. Sherman's idea of, creating localized shopping centers or at least places in the community where people, particularly the non-car owning public who typically commute by foot or by public transit. It is a pain to go from your neighborhood to the nearest Stop and Shop to buy your groceries and transport them on a bus. And I believe that if we had more grocery stores, perhaps even less bodegas, because that isn't necessarily something that I'm in favor of. I believe that we should have more microeconomic sense in creating local suppliers for the things that we need. I don't think we'll ever get back to the time where we have a dairy farmer or a place to buy your eggs and so on. But at the very least, if we live local and buy local, we can support small business owners. And I believe that utilizing those lots would be a very good solution. Creating more green space would be beneficial as well. But again, tending it is not something that is in the popular culture now. Young people and farming is, not a, they're not congruent as they once were. But I do hope that there will be, creative solutions on the horizon.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Bullard?
I would love to connect with the city's economic development person to see what type of revenue source we could turn these spaces into. I think business is definitely going to be very important to the city because they help to share the cost versus just relying on our taxpayers. So I would really like to see what type of revenue can these green spaces be turned into, because that's what's really going to provide jobs that are going to help people be sustainable. So whether it is turning these vacant lots into a spot for our food trucks where they can rent out from time to time, that'd be a good source of revenue and help to support our local merchants. Or even if they turn these spots into local places where local merchants can use to sell their items. I know we utilize the green for that, but it would be nice to also use these as kind of pop-up spots for merchants to use so that they're local. So instead of you having to travel all the way down to the green, you can get these local items closer to your neighborhoods and get more engaged in your neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have 2 more questions, and then you can escape. Everyone wants lower taxes. I'm asking this to Brenda.
Oh, okay.
Everyone wants lower taxes, but do you have any specific ideas how to lower the mill rate in Waterbury? Where do we cut?
I would speak with our state representatives to push a project where we could approve the tolls for our highways. I would like that. I will also revisit the city staff and how we invest our budget and see if we can cut from those different positions that may not be so necessarily or that we may be able to not rely in and readjust that system. I know it's a burden because of all the things that we have to deal with from the past, but we are working on it. The city development is crucial because that's going to bring businesses that are going to be able to pay taxes, the revitalization of those empty lots that we were talking about and the houses that are abandoned so that they can be owned and be productive to the city. That's one way also. And targeting all those people that are living here and have place from out of states like we have been doing lately. That's another way that we can lower the mill rates.
Thank you. Roger?
Thank you. I'm not sure how many of you have been down East Aurora Street recently, but we have a lovely combined public works department that's being built. I think we should continue combining like departments in that fashion. We have, on the Board of Education side, we have a tremendous amount of carpenters and electricians, what have you, that are housed in leased buildings. We should do, one of the main reasons we went forward with the combined Public Works Department was to stop leasing buildings. I think that that would be a very good start, moving those other like employees from the Board of Ed into that facility, stop leasing those buildings. I also think that we should look at like positions across the city, Board of Education and the city level, whether it be a grant writer, whether it be finance director. Maybe we could look to combine the sewer and water departments. We have management with very like knowledge requirements on both sides that could probably be done with one department, maybe one department head. Maybe we could look to support F&G's effort to expand to municipal waste so that we can lessen the wear and tear on the vehicles and the overtime to send our trash to Bristol. And that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin?
To add to the other suggestions, I think that our rampant problem with unregistered out-of-state plates, bogus temporary plates, and the like is something that's been stealing from our grand list. So if you walk down a city block, you'll find many out-of-state plates, and if you run them, which I do, and find that they are unregistered, which I frequently do, and tow them, which I often also do, we could perhaps enact an ordinance like we did with the illegal ATV operation, where we could seize the vehicle and auction it off. If you get caught doing that in the city of Waterbury, we could make millions of dollars selling all kinds of wonderful vehicles at the expense of people who don't think that they are, that they don't think that they need to pay the car taxes that all of our law-abiding citizens do. That's all I have to say about that.
Elizabeth?
I think one of the first things is seeing what the state, how the state budget is going to impact us. Once we see how much we're getting, we'll know how much we need to cut, and then we can look at our local budget to see where are the places that are not so vulnerable that we may be able to cut a little here, cut a little there, to see and make up for the revenue instead of raising our taxes even more. Again, I think it goes back to collaborating with the economic development person to see which buildings we can refurbish so that we can sell and use as revenue to encourage business to come, such as the former Shaker and Auto Fire, the former Shaker and Auto building. Former Shaker and Auto building. There was a fire there, and I don't believe there's anything being done with it. And that's possible revenue just sitting there that we could possibly sell and get more people to come. So again, it's looking at these buildings and seeing where is the revenue, so that way we can take a little of that burden off of our citizens and not raise any more taxes.
Good, thank you. And Sandra, you're next.
I also would love to see the out-of-state plates, the vehicles, enforced a little bit more. Everyone notices all these different vehicles with out-of-state plates, and my issue is, if you have a child going to school here, you are a citizen of Waterbury. You should be paying our taxes just like we do. We have to abide by that, and so should you. So if your child does go to our public school here in the city of Waterbury, then you should pay the taxes. Another issue would be just helping out the elderly, the tax rate going up. Not everyone can afford that. That's hard in itself. I'm a homeowner too, and it's very difficult. So that's something that I would work on also. But my belief is that if your child does go to a Waterbury public school, as a parent, you should pay Waterbury taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. And so you've already answered this. Mm-hmm. So this is the final question.
Why do you believe that you are the best person to represent the interests of your district? And this goes to...
I can start if you want. It doesn't, I don't know. Go ahead, you have the mic.
Okay, thank you. I can represent the best interest not only of the 5th District, but the whole city of Waterbury. And the reason why I can do that is because I have life experiences, good and bad. I have skills, I have professional development that have helped me to equip myself to understand every single level of this city. We have a diverse city, and we have to be able to be leaders for all, not only Hispanic, not only the South, but for all. We have here an entire nation in our city. We have here people from different countries, and we have to be able to understand each one of them, to get to know each one of them, to respect each one of them, and to advocate for each one of them. And that's why I'm the best.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sherman?
Thank you. I'll start with being a proud former Marine Corps veteran. I am also now a proud public servant. I have been active in the community In my 2 years with the neighborhood association meetings, with fundraising, with some of the disasters that we've seen in the past 2 years, I have done what I can for the residents of Waterbury. I've voted against the last tax increase, made suggestions of where we could cut spending. And thank you. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deval.
I look around this room and I see many people that I've met before, and many friends and people that I respect. I believe that I'm the best person for my district, with Liz, together to work for the people of Waterbury. Not because I feel like I'm better than anybody else here, but because I bring to the table certain experiences. Having worked as a licensed healthcare professional, I'm sensitive to patterns, things that cause illness. And to use that analogy, I see a lot of those things in our city, not unlike any other city in this country, but ones that I've had personal experience with. And understanding the sickness is part of it. And having an approach that not only deals with the manifestation of what ails us, but also the root causes of those things. So we have different problems that afflict our city. Take, for instance, the panhandling thing. Addiction is behind it. Behind the addiction is a socioeconomic issue, and then the greed of pharmaceutical companies and so on. It regresses to money at a certain point. But what I'd like to do is, having been a small business owner, a healthcare professional, and a police officer, and someone who has studied a great deal of world religions and other cultures, is to build bridges, be positive, take not a stand that is my own, but bring together the good ideas that other people have and work together to make our city better.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bullard.
Mm-hmm. Like Justin, it's my job to deal with people in crisis, to listen to people when they're having a problem. I'm a case manager at Salvation Army dealing with the homeless. And so when they're coming to me with their housing problems, not only do I have to listen to what the problem is, but I have to listen to what they're saying. So when you're saying you're needing something, are you saying you need to be empowered? Are you saying you need more resources? And I have to identify that and connect that person the best I can with those resources. So this is just a natural step for me. I've also been a volunteer with the Mayor Corps working with at-risk youth. I have been a resident leader through the Neighborhood Housing Resident Leadership Program for 2 years. So I'm engaged with the people. I want to just do my part to improve this city, and I feel like this is the next step for me to be in a position to better advocate for residents and to better make change as in the course of what I've already been doing.
Thank you. And Ms. Martinez McCarthy.
I believe that I am the best candidate for the 5th District. One of the reasons is I'm a mom. I was a mom. My daughter died last year in a tragic car accident. Anybody else, this would crush them. And I would say, they would say, you know what, forget about the world. I don't care anymore. It had the opposite effect on me. I actually love this city, and I want it to thrive. I do want people to come back to the city of Waterbury. I've been a resident for over 20 years. I've seen the good and the bad and the in-between. I want to be part of the good. I want to make, I know it sounds cheesy, but I do want to make Waterbury a great place to live in, to bring your kids, to, you know, have a good, just the whole city be a great city again. And I think it, you know, slowly but surely it will be. Just thinking of the positive in the city. And I think just, like I said, I am a mom, and the fight in me is still there, and I do want to fight for the residents. And I just love the city so much. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to you all for facing the heat. Thank you to you all for showing up to watch them face the heat. And to my colleague, John Murray, for helping us come up with the heat for you to face. Thank you.
Again, thank you.